Hello everyone, welcome to the New Testament channel. Today I will tell you about how the Israel-Palestine war started and the ongoing developments up to the present day. How did the Israel-Palestine conflict begin? After the Ottoman Empire's defeat in World War I, control of the region known as Palestine fell into the hands of England. In this area, there was an Arab majority, alongside a Jewish minority. Tensions increased between these two communities when the international community assigned the task of establishing a national homeland for Jews in Palestine to England. While Jews claimed the land as their ancient homeland, Palestinians vehemently opposed this assertion. Between the 1920s and 40s, the number of Jews seeking a homeland increased, driven by persecution in Europe and the aftermath of the Holocaust. Violence escalated not only between Jews and Arabs, but also against British rule. In 1947, the United Nations voted to partition Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem having a special status under UN supervision. Although Jewish leaders accepted this plan, it was never implemented due to Arab rejection. Why is Jerusalem so important for Israel, the Promised Land? The Promised Land, centered around Jerusalem, is not just a historical place for Jews. For centuries, their goal has been to gather all Jews scattered around the world here and realize the ideal of Greater Israel and eventually achieve world dominion, establishment of Israel, and the Nakba catastrophe. Unable to solve the issue, the British administration left the country in 1948. Jewish leaders declared the establishment of the State of Israel, effective on May 15th, when the last British forces left the region. Many Palestinians opposed this, leading to the outbreak of war. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were either forced to leave their lands or expelled from their homes. Palestinians began commemorating May 15th as the Nakba, or Catastrophe Day. Nearby Arab countries joined the conflict and occupied some areas. When the conflicts ended with a ceasefire the following year, Israel controlled most of the region. The establishment of Israel led to a significant Jewish migration from Europe and Arab countries to these lands. However, peace in the Middle East remained elusive. Wars continued, reaching the present day. Wars between Israel and Arab states. In recent history, 1948, Arab-Israeli War. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War began following the declaration of the establishment of the State of Israel on May 14, 1948. In response, the Arab League decided to intervene on behalf of Palestinian Arabs, deploying forces into the former British Palestine. The war, which resulted in approximately 15,000 casualties, concluded with a ceasefire agreement in 1949. Israel retained control of most of the former Mandate territories, Jordan occupied and later annexed the West Bank, and Egypt seized the Gaza Strip on September 22, 1948. 1956, Arab-Israeli War. During the 1950s, Jordan and Egypt supported cross-border attacks by Palestinian Fedayeen militants against Israel, while Israel conducted retaliatory operations in host countries. The 1956 Suez Crisis resulted in Israel briefly occupying the Gaza Strip and the exile of the All-Palestine government, which was later re-established upon Israel's withdrawal. The All-Palestine government was completely abandoned by Egypt in 1959 and formally merged with the United Arab Republic to the detriment of the Palestinian national movement. The Gaza Strip then came under the authority of the Egyptian military administrator, effectively becoming a military-occupied territory. However, in 1964, a new organization, the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, was established by Yasser Arafat. The organization quickly gained the support of most Arab League governments and secured a seat in the Arab League. 1967, Arab-Israeli War. The Six-Day War in 1967 had a significant impact on Palestinian nationalism as Israel took military control of the West Bank from Jordan and the Gaza Strip from Egypt. As a result, the PLO could not establish any control on the ground and set up its headquarters in Jordan, supporting the Jordanian army during the War of Attrition, including the Battle of Karameh. However, the Palestinian base in Jordan collapsed during the 1970 Jordanian-Palestinian Civil War. The defeat of the PLO by Jordanians led to the relocation of many Palestinian militants to southern Lebanon, where they quickly seized extensive areas, forming a region known as the Fatah Land. 1973 Arab-Israeli War. On October 6, 1973, a coalition primarily composed of forces from Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack on Israel on the holiest day in Judaism, Yom Kippur. Egypt and Syria violated previously agreed-upon ceasefire lines. Egypt focused on attempting to reoccupy much of the region surrounding the Suez Canal, while the front line with Syria was mainly in the Golan Heights to the north. The war concluded with Israel emerging victorious, but both sides suffered significant losses. 1982, Lebanon War. The Palestinian insurgency in southern Lebanon peaked in the early 1970s, using Lebanon as a base for attacks into northern Israel and global airplane hijacking campaigns. This led to Israeli retaliations. During the Lebanese Civil War, Palestinian militants continued attacks against Israel while also combating internal opposition within Lebanon. The Coastal Road Massacre in 1978 triggered a large-scale Israeli invasion known as Operation Litani. However, Israeli forces quickly withdrew from Lebanon and attacks against Israel resumed. After an assassination attempt on one of its diplomats by Palestinians in 1982, the Israeli government decided to intervene in the Lebanese civil war, leading to the start of the 1982 Lebanon War. Initial results were successful for Israel as most Palestinian militants were defeated. Within a few weeks, Beirut was captured and the PLO headquarters evacuated to Tunisia in June. First Intifada. The first Palestinian Intifada began in 1987 as a response to increased Israeli attacks and the ongoing occupation. In the early 1990s, international efforts to resolve the conflict started, inspired by the success of the 1979 Egypt-Israel Peace Treaty. Ultimately, the Israel-Palestine peace process culminated in the 1993 Oslo Accords. The PLO relocated from Tunisia to establish the Palestinian National Authority in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. The peace process faced significant opposition within Palestinian society, leading to attacks by radical Islamic elements like Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad targeting Israelis. Following hundreds of casualties and a wave of radical anti-government propaganda, Israeli Prime Minister Rabin was assassinated by a far-right Israeli opposed to the peace initiative. This event dealt a severe blow to the peace process, and the newly elected Israeli government in 1996 took a step back. Second Intifada. After several years of unsuccessful negotiations, the conflict erupted again in September 2000, known as the Second Intifada. Violence, turning into an open conflict between the Palestinian National Security Forces and the Israel Defense Forces, continued until 2004 and 2005, resulting in approximately 130 deaths. In 2005, Israeli Prime Minister Sharon ordered the evacuation of Israeli settlers and soldiers from Gaza. Israel officially declared an end to the occupation, stating it had no effective control over what was happening in Gaza. However, the United Nations, Human Rights Watch, and many other international organizations and NGOs continue to view Israel as the occupying power in Gaza due to its control over airspace, territorial waters, and the movement of people and goods in and out of Gaza by air or sea. Hamas-Fatah division. In 2006, Hamas won a 44% majority in the Palestinian parliamentary elections. Israel warned of economic sanctions if Hamas did not accept previous Israel-Palestine agreements, renounce violence, and recognize Israel's right to exist. Hamas rejected these conditions. The internal Palestinian political struggle between Fatah and Hamas turned into the Gaza battle in 2007, with Hamas taking complete control of the region. In 2007, Israel imposed a naval blockade on Gaza and collaborated with Egypt to enforce a land blockade at the Egypt-Gaza border. Tensions between Israel and Hamas escalated until the end of 2008, when Israel launched Operation Cast Lead against Gaza, resulting in thousands of civilian deaths and billions of dollars in damage. In February 2009, an internationally mediated ceasefire was signed between the parties, but the occupation and sporadic acts of violence continued. In 2011, the attempt by the Palestinian Authority to gain full membership in the UN as a sovereign state was unsuccessful. Occasional rocket attacks from Gaza controlled by Hamas and Israeli airstrikes persist. In November 2012, Palestine's representation at the UN was upgraded to non-member observer state status, changing its title from Palestine, represented by the PLO, to State of Palestine. In 2014, the Israel-Gaza conflict resulted in the loss of over 70 Israeli and 2,000 Palestinian lives. The Aqsa storm operation in October 2023 marked the outbreak of the Hamas-Israel war. Hamas's military wing, the Izz-ad-Din al-Qassam brigades, initiated widespread attacks across Israel. In response, Israel declared war on Hamas, leading to a conflict resulting in over 1,400 Israeli and 15,000+ Palestinian civilian deaths, with more than 15,000 people overall losing their lives and over 45,000 sustaining injuries. 1 million Gazans and 500,000 Israelis were displaced. Israel, for the first time since the Yom Kippur War, declared war and conducted extensive bombardments on Gaza. The central issue of the conflict includes the dispute over Jerusalem. Israel claims the entirety of Jerusalem as its capital, while Palestinians argue that East Jerusalem should be the capital of a future Palestinian state. Although the U.S. recognizes Jerusalem as Israel's capital, it emphasizes that the city's final status should be determined through negotiated agreements. Over the past 50 years, Israel has built settlements in these areas where more than 600,000 Jews reside, a move contested by Palestinians and widely considered as violating international law, despite Israel's rejection of such claims. Reactions from around the world to developments in Israel-Palestine, support demonstrations across the globe, support rallies for Palestine took place in several countries, including Spain, Poland, Japan, Morocco, Lebanon, and Pakistan. In Warsaw, the capital of Poland, a march in support of Palestine gathered hundreds of participants, protesting Israel's attacks on Gaza. Demonstrators, assembling in Warsaw's Old Town Square, expressed their solidarity with Palestine and protested against Israel's attacks on Gaza. Throughout the march, participants chanted slogans such as "Freedom for Palestine," "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," and "Stop the genocide in Gaza." Spain. In Spain, support demonstrations were held to show solidarity with Palestine. The gatherings aimed to denounce Israel's attacks on Gaza. The events attracted attention and participation from people advocating for Palestinian rights. Japan, Tokyo, the capital of Japan, witnessed a protest in support of Palestinians and to protest Israel's intensive attacks on Gaza. Representatives and members of human rights organizations from Muslim countries gathered at Ichigaya Station in the capital. The crowd, carrying Palestinian flags, marched from Sotobori Park to the Israeli embassy in Tokyo. Slogans such as "Down with Israel," "Ceasefire now," "Save Gaza," and "Free Palestine now" resonated during the demonstration, which took place under heightened security. These demonstrations reflect the global response to the conflict, with people expressing solidarity with Palestinians and condemning Israel's actions in Gaza. Today, we attempted to convey the beginning and the ongoing process of the Israel-Palestine war. We hope that wars around the world come to an end as soon as possible. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications.